Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about how you promote equality in the classroom?
Yes. So there's lots of different ways. One way is to use a newspaper. So this morning I picked up the Metro, and I didn't have to look far, just page 7, and there's an article about Madonna falling over at the Brits. Okay? It's very interesting because if you read it, Madonna is talking about her age. She's complaining that the press are focusing on the fact that she's 56 and that how this is discriminatory for her. And she feels that ageism is a real problem. This is something that I would bring into the class because it's relevant. They could read the article, and let's say in an English class we could discuss that, whether learners agree with it, whether they disagree with it, whether they've experienced it, and that would be brilliant for a speaking and listening exercise.
When we're looking at equality in the teaching of complementary therapies, in particular massage, we'd look at the physical differences that we all have, whether as a therapist or the client that you actually have on the couch. When it comes to the use of oils, so you shouldn't always look at just the immediate supply of oils that are traditional in this country. Look on a wider scope. There's even rose oil, which is wonderful for the face. Argan oil, and one that we've heard a lot about recently because of its properties for moisturising and for infusing actually a feeling of rejuvenation to the skin.
One of the ways I promote diversity in class is through language. I teach a maths class, it's actually a family maths class, and if it's quite a diverse class, I really like to include all the learners' different languages. And a really good way of doing this is through the symbols and the language associated with those symbols. So I might start off with something like showing them Chinese characters and then getting them to guess which of those symbols mean addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. I'll then get them to have a go at writing their own languages next to those symbols and teaching each other the symbols and the language associated with them.
We usually cook healthy dishes in a cook and eat class. We didn't use any meat yesterday because we had a vegetarian lady with us, and I gave them the option to use halal meat or halal chicken because we also had a lady who comes from Iran and she's Muslim, so therefore she only eats halal meat. To make sure that we include everybody in our class, I always ask at the beginning of a session if someone has an allergy to any types of food, or if they have any cultural beliefs or religious beliefs.
In the run-up to Christmas, we were talking about different celebrations, different festivals around the world, rather than just focusing on Christmas in the UK. And I used this board game with learners, which was to get them discussing different festivals and celebrations in their own countries and cultures, as well as talking about things that might be common to everybody, such as birthdays and graduation celebrations. And so they went around talking about those things, but rather than just having it be discussing their own countries and cultures, we also wanted to promote diversity. So we used some different quiz cards where they had to answer a kind of general knowledge type question about different festivals or different celebrations in countries around the world that they might not have been familiar with, places that they might not have been, or celebrations that might have been new to them.
I've printed off a page from the British Dyslexia Association which talks about the percentage of the population that suffer from dyslexia. So here it says 10% of the population have dyslexia, 4% have it severely. And that's great because we can use that in for instance, a maths class. We can express 10% as a fraction, 10% as a ratio. We can ask learners to calculate if 10% of the class have dyslexia, how many people does that equate to? We can look at it with much bigger numbers. For instance, we could look at the population of the UK and look at that. So what does that mean in terms of if 10% of those people have dyslexia, how many people is it? So that covers lots of different topics for maths.
One of the ways that I would promote equality and inclusion within my classes would be, I'm going to show you an example now. If I was to work on characters, All of my students would get a sheet like this, which would list out questions. For instance, what is your name? How old are you? What do you do for a living? Where do you live? Etc. They would also be asked to choose a photograph. And here are just a few of the photographs that would be presented to them. And what would happen is I would ask them to choose somebody that's very different from themselves. So they would look at the pictures, and I would say choose one that you're drawn to and somebody that you want to create. And they will hopefully choose somebody that they could get into the head of that they wouldn't normally associate themselves as. So for instance, a very young person might choose this lady here. In which case it puts them in a position where they can have a clearer understanding by creating the life that's associated with that. Got to have a group of people that were reading their stories out loud and stuff. So I hope